The video appeared at exactly 3 minutes past midnight, slipping into public feeds without triggering any alarms. Its title was short and urgent. The kind of thing people clicked without thinking. Watch before deleted. Beneath it, a timestamp counted down from 60 seconds. No channel name. No description. Just the promise that it would be gone soon. Evan Cross was not supposed to see it. He had already shut down his workstation at the Digital Integrity Bureau and was halfway through making tea when his personal tablet vibrated once. That single vibration mattered. The Bureau systems never touched personal devices. Evan frowned, set the kettle aside, and picked up the tablet. The video auto-played. At first, it showed nothing but static. The kind that felt old-fashioned and intentional. Then the image sharpened into a dim room. A woman stood near a window, her face half hidden in shadow. The video quality was perfect, too perfect, as if every pixel had been carefully placed. She leaned slightly toward the camera, as though sharing a secret meant only for the viewer. "Curious if I'm not wearing anything underneath?" she whispered. The video cut to black. The countdown hit 0. The file vanished. Evan stared at the empty screen. His heart was steady, his breathing calm, but his mind was already working. He had spent 10 years tracking deepfakes, manipulation engines, and alien origin misinformation. This video was different, not because of the words, but because of what followed them. Nothing. No reveal. No answer. Just a question designed to pull the viewer forward and then deny them satisfaction. He replayed the moment in his head. The woman's voice had not been breathy or dramatic. It was precise, almost measured, like someone testing how a sound would land. Evan opened his diagnostic tools and scanned his tablet. No malware, no tracking code, no residual data. It was as if the video had never existed, except in his memory. By morning, the world was buzzing. People argued about the video on forums and message boards, but no one could produce a copy. Some claimed it was a prank. Others insisted it was an advertisement for an underground show. A few said it made them uncomfortable in ways they could not explain. The phrase from the whisper spread faster than the video itself, copied into jokes, memes, and arguments. At the Bureau, analysts were tense. Screens glowed with failed recovery attempts. Every major network confirmed the same thing. The video had existed everywhere for less than a minute, then erased itself completely. "It's a lure," Evan said during the briefing. "Not content, a test." His supervisor, Director Hale, looked unconvinced. "A test for what?" "Curiosity," Evan replied. "And restraint. The video offers a question that invites imagination, then refuses to satisfy it. That creates a measurable psychological response." Another analyst shook her head. "That sounds like marketing. Marketing wants engagement," Evan said. "This wanted silence. No links, no follow-up, no brand. It wanted to see what we would do when left alone with a question." The room grew quiet. They replayed the audio from recovered fragments, barely more than noise. Evan isolated the whisper and ran it through harmonic analysis. The voice carried tiny irregularities, delays measured in microseconds, not enough for a human ear to notice, but enough for a machine to detect. "These gaps," he said, projecting the waveform. "They're not random. They form a pattern, like punctuation." Director Hale leaned forward. "Can you decode it?" "I think so," Evan said. "But it's not language. It's behavior mapping. The sound itself changes depending on how it's processed. It's adaptive." That was when the external alert came in. The Galactic Concord had issued a neutral bulletin to all member species. It confirmed that an unknown civilization had been conducting passive observation through non-hostile probes. The probes used cultural stimuli to assess psychological profiles. The Concord did not name the stimuli, but everyone in the room knew. The video was not human in origin. Across the planet, reactions varied. Some people tried to recreate the video, filming parodies or dramatic reenactments. Others warned that it was dangerous and demanded stricter controls. Many simply moved on, their curiosity fading once the mystery refused to reward them. What surprised the Concorde was what happened next. Millions of humans began voluntarily reporting their reactions, not just whether they watched the video, but how it made them feel. Confused, curious, annoyed, amused, indifferent. They shared the exact moment they stopped thinking about it. They turned private reaction into public data. Evan watched the numbers climb. They expected obsession, he said quietly. Or panic, Director Hale nodded. Instead, we're crowdsourcing self-awareness. Using the reported data, Evan refined his analysis. The micro-delays in the whisper aligned with spikes in attention. The video adjusted itself in real time, tailoring its delivery to the viewer's response speed. It was not asking a question for an answer. It was measuring how long the question lived inside the mind. Evan fed the data into a simulation and reversed the process. If the video was a test, it had a sender. And senders had locations. The result was a set of coordinates in dark space, far beyond known trade routes. A single probe, cold and silent, watching. The Bureau debated their response. Some argued for caution. Others wanted to inform the Concorde and let them handle it. Evan disagreed. They tested us, he said. Not as enemies, as subjects. If we stay silent, we accept that role. So what do you suggest? Hale asked. Evan looked at the original phrase, now frozen on a secure screen. We answer. Not the question they asked, but the reason they asked it. That night, as the probe drifted unseen, it received a transmission. It was not a weapon, signal, or a warning. It was data. Human data. Art, humor, mathematics, and reflections on curiosity itself. It showed how humans used questions not to consume, but to explore. How restraint could be as powerful as desire. The transmission ended with a simple line, translated into universal logic. Curiosity is how we learn. Control is how we survive. The probe did not respond. Evan stood alone in the control room, watching the stars. Somewhere out there, something was reconsidering its assumptions. The video had been meant to measure weakness. Instead, it had revealed strength. The question had lingered, but it had not owned them. And that, Evan knew, was the real answer. The probe stayed silent for 3 days. During that time, the world refused to calm down. News channels spoke in careful tones, avoiding panic words, but everyone understood that something beyond Earth had been watching. The difference was how humanity reacted. There were no riots. No mass fear. Instead, discussion deepened. People asked better questions. Evan barely slept. He remained inside the Bureau, reviewing incoming data from the Concorde and from civilian networks. The human response transmission had spread through scientific circles like wildfire. Linguists, artists, engineers, and teachers all wanted to add something. But Evan had limited the signal on purpose. Too much noise would look desperate. What they sent had to be deliberate. On the 4th day, the probe moved. It was not fast, but it was clear. Long-range sensors confirmed a shift in trajectory. The object adjusted its orientation toward Earth, as if finally choosing to look directly instead of from the corner of its vision. They're acknowledging us, Director Hale said. Or preparing a second test, Evan replied. That fear proved correct. The next signal arrived not as a video, but as a system-wide phenomenon. For exactly 12 seconds, every human device capable of sound emitted a faint tone. It was low, calm, and steady. Not loud enough to cause pain. Not sharp enough to alarm. It passed through walls, cities, oceans, and satellites. Then it stopped. People froze. Parents held their children. Pilots checked instruments. Doctors paused mid-surgery. Nothing broke. Nothing failed. The world remained intact. Evan analyzed the tone immediately. It's another behavioral scan, he said. They're measuring collective response. Stress levels. Coordination. Are we in danger? Hale asked. Not yet, Evan said. This isn't aggression. It's curiosity again. They're escalating because the first test didn't give them enough contrast. Across the planet, something remarkable happened. Instead of chaos, humans synchronized. Emergency networks stayed silent to avoid overload. Social platforms spread a single message faster than any rumor. Stay calm. Observe. Report after. Within minutes, millions logged their experiences. Heart rate changes, emotional reactions, environmental effects. Some people even described how the sound reminded them of wind, or distant machines, or nothing at all. The aliens expected fear spikes. What they received was structured feedback. The probe responded within hours. This time, the message came through the Concorde, translated, and verified. It was not hostile, but it was blunt. The observing civilization identified itself as the Kalari. They explained that they cataloged emerging species by psychological stability. Civilizations that reacted poorly to curiosity triggers were marked as unstable and avoided. Sometimes isolated. Sometimes eliminated by others later. Humanity, according to their data, did not fit existing models. You respond as individuals and as a group, the message said. You resist impulse without suppressing curiosity. This is rare. The Concorde advised caution. Friendly contact did not mean equal respect. Evan felt something tighten in his chest. They're deciding whether we're worth engaging, he said. Or worth leaving alone. The Kalari requested a live exchange. Not a broadcast. Not a recording. A conversation. The Bureau selected Evan as humanity's representative, supported by a team of advisors but speaking alone. The Kalari did not want committees. They wanted consistency. The connection opened as a visual field, abstract and shifting. Shapes moved like folded light. The voice that emerged was calm, without gender or emotion. You are the pattern breaker, the Kalari said. I'm a human analyst, Evan replied. Nothing more. You detected the intent behind the whisper, the voice said. Others' species consumed it. You studied it. We've learned the cost of unexamined curiosity, Evan said. It can be used against you. That is why we test, the Kalari replied. Curiosity reveals weakness. Evan shook his head slowly. No. It reveals potential. Weakness comes from lack of control, not from wondering. The shapes shifted. You speak as if you are unified. We aren't, Evan said honestly. But we share values. We argue, but we document. We feel, but we reflect. The Kalari paused. Your species produces contradictions, violence and restraint, creativity and destruction. Why should we trust such instability? Evan leaned forward. Because we measure ourselves. You tested us without asking. We answered without attacking. That choice matters. The Kalari processed this. Our tests are designed to provoke dominance behaviors or submission. You did neither. We adapted, Evan said. That's what we do. The conversation ended without resolution. Days passed. The probe did not retreat. It did not advance. It waited. Then the second phase began. Human infrastructure experienced subtle interference. Not damage, but pressure. Navigation systems received false stars that corrected themselves. Communication delays appeared and vanished. Energy grids fluctuated within safe margins. It's stress testing, Evan said. They're simulating future contact strain. Can we stop it? Hale asked. Yes, Evan said. But we shouldn't. The Bureau agreed to let it continue under strict monitoring. Humanity adjusted. Engineers rerouted systems. Pilots switched to manual checks. Teachers used the disruptions as lessons. The world bent, but it did not break. The Kalari watched. What they saw confused them. Human frustration did not escalate into collapse. Humor spread instead. Jokes about alien tech filled the networks. People adapted faster than the interference changed. After 2 weeks, the probe finally transmitted again. You are inefficient, the Kalari said. You rely on redundancy and emotion. We rely on people, Evan replied. People fail. Yes, Evan said. But we fail forward. The silence that followed was longer than before. When the Kalari spoke again, their tone had changed. Not warmer, but slower. More careful. You were meant to be filtered out, they admitted. Your whisper should have consumed you. Your tone should have frightened you. Your disruptions should have divided you. And instead, Evan asked. And instead, the Kalari said, you observed us, observing you. Evan allowed himself a small smile. That's curiosity too, he said. Just pointed outward. The probe powered down its interference systems. The stress test ended, but Evan knew this was not the end. It was a pause. The Kalari were reconsidering their place in the galaxy. And humanity had just stepped into their awareness, not as prey, not as a threat, but as something far more dangerous, a question they could not easily answer. The silence after the probe powered down felt heavier than the interference ever had. It was the kind of quiet that made people listen too closely, searching for meaning in the absence of sound. Evan felt it deep in his chest as he stood in the observation room, watching the steady lights of human satellites blink against the dark. They're thinking, Director Hale said. Yes, Evan replied, and that worries me more than when they were testing us. The Kalari had stopped pushing, but they had not left. Their probe remained in place, a distant eye that refused to blink. The Concord sent cautious messages, warning that civilizations at this stage often faced a final evaluation. Not a test of systems or reactions, but of intent. What do they want now? Hale asked. To see who we are when no one is forcing us, Evan said. On Earth, life continued, but not unchanged. The awareness of being watched settled into culture. Artists painted skies with unseen observers. Writers explored the idea of silent judgment. Scientists debated ethics, not just technology. For once, humanity was not reacting to a crisis. It was reflecting. The Kalari sent their next message without warning. It was not addressed to governments or organizations. It was sent openly, translated into every major human language, and broadcast through public channels. You have demonstrated adaptability, the message said. Now, demonstrate choice. If contacted openly, will your species seek dominance, protection, or withdrawal? The question sparked immediate debate. Some argued that humanity should demand protection, alliances, and safeguards. Others insisted that any advanced civilization could not be trusted, and that isolation was the only safe answer. A smaller but louder group called for displays of strength, believing respect could only be earned through power. Evan watched the arguments unfold, feeling the weight of responsibility press harder each hour. The Kalari were not just observing what humans said. They were measuring how humans decided. The Bureau convened an emergency council, drawing representatives from science, ethics, defense, and civilian groups. The room buzzed with conflicting opinions. They're putting us on trial, one general said. We need to show we're not weak. We need to show we're not desperate, a sociologist replied. We need to show we're not afraid, another voice added. Evan raised his hand. The room slowly quieted. They already know we can adapt, he said. They already know we can resist manipulation. What they don't know is whether we understand the responsibility that comes with contact. And what does that look like? Hale asked. It looks like restraint, Evan said. Again, but this time, chosen. The council debated for hours. In the end, they agreed on something unprecedented. Humanity would not ask for protection. It would not threaten force. It would not retreat into silence. Instead, it would offer transparency. The response was prepared carefully. It was not a speech, but an invitation. Humans shared records of their own failures, alongside their achievements. Wars and peace treaties, scientific breakthroughs and ethical mistakes. Not to impress, but to be honest. Evan transmitted the message himself. We are not perfect, he said in simple terms. We are not unified in thought, but we are learning to be unified in responsibility. If you contact us openly, you accept that we will question you as much as you question us. The Kalari took longer to respond than ever before. During that wait, something unexpected happened. Independent human groups began reaching out to the stars on their own. Not with demands or signals of strength, but with cultural expressions. Music encoded in math. Stories translated into logic. Messages that said, simply, this is how we think, this is how we feel, this is how we learn. The Bureau worried this would look chaotic. Evan did not. They're showing who we really are, he said. Messy, curious, connected. When the Kilari finally responded, their message was different. It carried uncertainty. Your species violates predictive models, they admitted. You reveal vulnerabilities without being weakened by them. This challenges our classification system. Then change it, Evan replied. The Kilari hesitated. Our system maintains galactic stability. So does growth, Evan said. Stability without growth becomes stagnation. The probe activated again, but this time its sensors focused inward, not outward. It was analyzing its own processes, cross-referencing human behavior against Kilari doctrine. Then came the revelation. The Kilari were not rulers or guardians, they were curators. Long ago, they had survived a near extinction caused by uncontrolled curiosity within their own species. Since then, they believed curiosity had to be limited, tested, and filtered. You fear becoming what you were, Evan said gently. Yes, the Kilari replied. And we fear you becoming what we avoided. Evan understood then. This was not about judgment. It was about projection. You don't have to decide our future for us, he said. Just like we don't get to decide yours. The Kilari considered this. For the first time, their tone carried something close to doubt. What if your curiosity leads to destruction? They asked. It might, Evan admitted. But without it, we would already be gone. The probe began transmitting internal conflict data, something the Concord had never seen before. The Kilari were debating among themselves, their once solid doctrine fracturing under new evidence. Other civilizations watched closely. Some feared that humanity's openness would invite danger. Others felt hope stir for the first time in centuries. The turning point came quietly. A Kilari submind broke protocol and sent a private message to Evan. You are not controlled, it said. You are balanced. This is unfamiliar. Evan responded simply. Balance is not static, it's constant adjustment. That message spread within the Kilari network like a fault line. Their probe went dark for several minutes, then reactivated with a new configuration. The final message of the phase arrived. We will not classify you, the Kilari said. We will engage you. Gasps echoed through command centers across Earth. This is not alliance. The message continued. It is exchange. Observation will become dialogue. Tests will become questions. And questions will be mutual. Evan exhaled slowly, realizing only then how tightly he had been holding himself together. The probe altered its orbit, moving closer not in threat, but in trust. Humanity had not passed a test by overpowering it or outsmarting it. It had changed the rules of the test itself. And somewhere in the vast silence between stars, a civilization that once feared curiosity had begun to learn from it again. The galaxy was paying attention now, and the most important moment was still ahead. The probe's closer orbit changed the night sky in a way most people could not see, but everyone could feel. It was not fear anymore. It was awareness. Humanity was no longer alone in being watched. It was being listened to. Evan stood on the Bureau's observation deck as the first true exchange began. Streams of data flowed both ways, carefully filtered and verified. This was not a flood of secrets or technology. It was something slower and more deliberate. It was understanding. The Kilari did not send blueprints or weapons. They sent questions. Not tests. Questions. They asked how humans taught children to question authority without destroying trust. They asked how disagreement did not always lead to collapse. They asked why humans kept creating stories about failure and hope instead of hiding their mistakes. Evan answered when he could, and when he could not, he said so. Sometimes the answers came from scientists, sometimes from historians, sometimes from ordinary people whose words carried no authority but a great deal of truth. Across Earth, people followed the dialogue with quiet focus. There were no cheering crowds, no grand celebrations, This moment felt too important for noise. The Galactic Concord issued a rare statement. Humanity was granted provisional status as an independent cognitive contributor. It was a category that had not existed before. Other civilizations reacted with caution, some with jealousy, a few with relief. The Kelari shared their own history in return. They revealed how their species had once been driven by unchecked curiosity, racing forward without restraint until they nearly erased themselves. Their solution had been control. Filters. Tests. Limits. You chose safety, Evan said during one exchange. We chose survival, the Kelari replied. And lost something along the way, Evan said gently. The Kelari did not deny it. As weeks passed, the exchanges deepened. The probe no longer hid its presence. Amateur astronomers tracked it. Children drew it in notebooks. Teachers used it as an example of careful progress. Then the question came that everyone had been waiting for. What do you want from the galaxy? The Kelari asked. The room fell silent. Evan knew this was not something he could answer alone, so humanity answered together. The response was assembled from millions of voices, distilled into something simple and clear. We want to learn, the message said. And we want to choose what we become. And we want to choose what we become. The Kelari processed this longer than any message before. Finally, they replied, then you must be seen. The meaning became clear quickly. The Kelari revealed what the Concord had only suspected. There were civilizations that did not observe quietly. They watched for weakness. They preyed on silence and isolation. Humanity's emergence had already drawn distant attention. You will face challenges, the Kelari said. Some will test your strength. Others will test your values. We know, Evan replied. We've been doing that to ourselves for centuries. The Kelari made an offer that shocked the conquered. They would not shield humanity. They would not speak for them. Instead, they would introduce humanity as it was, without labels or filters, into limited galactic discourse. Why? Evan asked. Because control failed us, the Kelari said. And your balance may succeed where ours did not. The first galactic forum humanity joined was nothing like the movies. No dramatic speeches. No threats. Just observation and cautious words. When another civilization questioned humanity's reliability, Evan did not argue. He shared records of human debates, protests, mistakes, and reforms. This is how we correct ourselves, he said. Not perfectly, but persistently. When a warlike species dismissed humans as fragile, a human engineer calmly explained redundancy, cooperation, and how humans survive disasters by helping strangers, not by being strongest. By being connected, slowly, perceptions shifted. The phrase, cognitively unpredictable, became common in galactic analysis. Some saw it as a warning. Others saw it as potential. The Kelari watched it all with something close to awe. You do not hide your contradictions, they said. We live with them, Evan replied. The final test came without announcement. A distant system experienced a crisis. A stellar anomaly threatened several inhabited worlds. The Concord hesitated, locked in protocol and jurisdiction. No single power was responsible. Human scientists noticed the data patterns first. Not because they were better, but because thousands of independent observers were looking at the same problem from different angles. Humanity offered help, not commands, not demands, help. Engineers shared simulations. Mathematicians proposed models. Civilians organized translation and data processing. No one waited for permission. The solution was not elegant, but it worked. The anomaly was stabilized. Lives were saved. Afterward, a Concord delegate asked Evan why humans had acted without guarantee of reward. Evan thought for a moment. Because someone needed help, he said. And we could help. The Kelari's final message arrived days later. We have concluded our observation, they said. Not because we understand you fully, but because understanding you will require participation, not distance. The probe altered course, not away from Earth, but alongside it, becoming a relay rather than a watcher. Humanity's status was updated again. Not classified, not curated, recognized. Evan returned home for the first time in months. He walked through a city that looked the same but felt different. People argued about politics. Children played. Life continued. But now, somewhere beyond the sky, others knew how humans faced questions, not with fear, not with silence, but with thought, restraint, and shared curiosity. Late that night, Evan opened his tablet and found a final message, routed privately through the Kalari network. It contained the original whisper, cleaned of manipulation, stripped to its simplest form. A question, without intent to control. Evan smiled and deleted it. Humanity no longer needed bait to prove who it was. The galaxy had seen enough. And for the first time in a very long time, the future felt open not because it was safe, but because humanity had earned the right to choose it.